All right, guys, welcome back to this sixth key knowledge dot point in marketing. That last video was obviously a bit of a killer, a bit of a long one, those 7 Ps, but this one will be much more along the usual lines. Nothing too complicated here. Let's get into it. So here's our study design, and this is what we're looking at today, the product life cycle. We'll start off with looking at what the product life cycle is. So as you're going through this video, this image that you see in front of you, which demonstrates the sales of a product through its life cycle, just be aware of this when we're talking about each of the individual stages in there. Okay, so we'll take each stage in turn so that you understand basically what it means and what's happening to sales. And I guess really the point of this is, if you're aware of what stage your product that you're selling is in that life cycle, it means that you're going to tweak your marketing strategies accordingly. So basically, you don't do the same marketing throughout the life of a product. You'll change it as it moves through this life cycle. And look, just to put out there, the reality of this is some products have like a really short life cycle. It might only be a year or two, and some can be many, many decades. And I'll give some examples at the back end of the video to give you an idea, put into some perspective. So at each stage of the life cycle, the business must change its marketing mix, those 7 Ps that we looked at in the last video. And then also to extend the life cycle of business could use extension strategies. So I'll talk about that when we get into the decline and extension stage at the end. Okay, so there you see product extension. So what we're saying is here, instead of allowing the decline to continue, what we might want to do is put in some marketing strategies to extend that maturity stage, which obviously is a good thing because it means you're getting more sales for a longer period of time rather than them just completely dropping off. So let's take each of the stages in turn. So first off, introduction. So this is where the product is launched into the marketplace. Obviously, at that point, your sales and your market share are going to be low, and they're probably going to be increasing at a fairly slow pace initially. Competition is going to be scarce or non-existent if this is actually a completely new product that you've entered into the marketplace. And your marketing strategies do tend to focus on customer awareness, okay? Because people aren't aware of this product, again, particularly if it's a new thing. So your marketing is going to focus on just people being aware that this thing exists in the first place. In terms of pricing strategies, look, you've got a few options. You might go price penetration to gain traction really quickly. So in other words, a low price initially, just to get those customers on board real quick. Or you might decide to price skim to recover those startup costs that you probably incurred in the setting up of the business and the development of the product more quickly. So it kind of depends on your strategy there. Promotion strategy is likely to be targeted at those early adopters. And distribution is probably going to be quite selective. You're not going to be everywhere at the moment. You know, you might start in maybe a range of stores. You might just start online. And then what happens over time, you know, if this thing takes off, then you will start to increase your distribution. And you might want to focus on after sales service even to gain traction from customers quickly. Okay, so that's your introduction. Pretty straightforward, I think. So now we move on to growth. So if we've done the right thing during introduction and we've effectively promoted this thing and people are aware of it, you know, I just mentioned the after sales. If you've already demonstrated you've got great after sales service as part of the package, hopefully the product will be accepted by consumers and now your sales and market share are going to start to increase, which is why I see that graph go up. Okay, profits are increasing now. Also be aware though that if this was a new product and you were like the first to market, now it is likely that you might have some new competitors entering the market. Okay, so people, you know, maybe trying to copy what you're doing or have seen a good business opportunity. So be aware. That's one of the reasons you might think about legally protecting your product in those early stages as far as possible, so people can't just outright copy it. Then you start to refine the product, maybe product design and features. You know, it's a process. So you might start to make improvements once you've got some feedback from customers, continually trying to improve it and trying to meet those customer needs and wants even better. You might adjust your pricing strategy now to depending on what you use for the introduction stage. So if you went in with a price skim, you might increase it. If you went in for the opposite, you might start to decrease it. And promotion now is probably going to be to a wider audience. So, you started focusing on those early adopters. Now you might start promoting to a broader market. And now your staff are more experienced in dealing with customers and any issues that might arise. So that after sales service should also be improving. Of course, that's if you have staff. You might not have staff at this stage even. Maturity. So now this is where the graph starts to kind of level out at the top, as we saw. So now your sales are starting to stabilize. They started slow, they grew quickly, and then at some point they're going to start to kind of taper off, okay? Competition is now strong. Profits are starting to decline. You're still making profits. Don't get me wrong, you're not losing money here. In fact, you're making really good profits because your sales are kind of at the peak, but the issue is they're going to start to decline. So now, in terms of your marketing mix, the 7 Ps, you're really starting to try to differentiate yourself from those competitors, okay? You might need to reduce prices to keep that product competitive, particularly if other competitors are now coming in and undercutting you. So promotion is going to focus on things like your brand image and differentiation. So differentiating your product from those competitors that you have. I guess particularly if they are coming in and undercutting you, you've got to demonstrate your value proposition to those customers, why they might pay a little bit more for your product if you're still more expensive than them. Now your staff are really experienced in dealing with customers and also portraying the business's brand. So over this period of time, the brand has also improved, and hope you've got a good reputation in the market. And all of your processes within your business are really well established. And now you're just talking about refining those processes. Okay, so that is your maturity. Then with that graph, we see it starts to decline. Okay, so this is where your sales start to taper off, okay? So a steady decline in sales may be due to competitors' products now being more popular, or it might actually be that the market for that entire type of product declines, okay? And I'll show you an example or two in a minute or two. When the product becomes unprofitable, or you might even have a new product ready to replace it, then you might actually withdraw that original product from the market. Okay, so ideally, if you're going to withdraw a product from the market, you want something coming in behind to replace it. Otherwise, essentially, you have no business. You might want to sell all existing stock. So this is where you see these big sales and they get rid of the old models at a cheap price, just in the lead up to a new model coming out. It happens in lots of markets. Think about computers, phones, cars do this. You get run out models, run out sales. Distribution might be limited again now to a few low-cost distribution channels. You don't want to be putting too much investment into this product because it's on the decline. So you're kind of trying to save costs, and you might do that through reducing your distribution channels. And promotion is probably going to be reduced, but what there is probably going to be focused on these sales promotions, okay, like linking into getting rid of this existing stock. Okie doke. So that's your decline. But we have an alternative. And like I say, this is probably the sensible thing to do, unless, look, you have a really, really strong product coming up behind which can replace this fairly quickly. So what you might want to do is try some extension strategies. So you see that little blue part at the end there to kind of relift that sales curve back up again. So this is where you put in some strategies to extend the product life cycle, basically, and essentially prevent the product from becoming obsolete, okay? One way to do this is perhaps exporting to new countries. So reaching new locations that maybe didn't have that product, and therefore new customers, and potentially less competition in those markets as well. Creating newer updated versions of products is an alternative method to stay competitive and prevent the product from becoming obsolete. Just a couple of examples. So you think of the cassette tape. I'm assuming you guys have seen one of these. So this is our product, which basically, I don't think is any longer in use. So introduced in the 1960s and originally as an alternative to vinyl, the old records. Again, I'm assuming you know what I talk about. They had real quick growth and hit the peak in the 1980s. In 1982, the first commercial CD was released, and they gained traction really, really quickly. In 1991, for the first time, CD sales for the first time overtook cassette sales, and it really wasn't long before that cassettes essentially became obsolete. Everyone had moved on to CDs, and cassettes were kind of no longer a thing. It's interesting if you think about it now. I guess CDs, you can still buy CDs, but they would definitely be in the decline stage now because they've been replaced by streaming. And this is, it's what you see, these different products. You can see the life cycle, and then you can see the new products which kind of overtake and become, kind of the normal thing in that particular type of market. Typewriter, again, introduced in the late 19th century, so a long, long time ago. Grew in popularity. There was a real technological advancement at the time, so it made writing much, much quicker and easier. But then, obviously, a few decades ago, we had computers, laptops, and even smartphones now, I guess, replacing typewriters. So typewriter demand obviously has completely dropped off, and they're now at the real tail end of the decline phase. I don't even know. You probably can. There's probably still some specialist, people that, a market for a bit like vinyl, those real kind of people that are into that old stuff, the purists. So you might still be able to buy a typewriter, but certainly not in bulk. Manufacturers that used to make a lot of money on typewriters won't even be making them anymore. Okay. The VCR, again, you will be aware of what this is, the video cassette recorder. Look, it would now be a challenge to find one in anybody's home, but in the 80s and 90s, every home had a VCR. And again, I guess DVD recording maybe became a thing, but really streaming, Netflix, that sort of thing. DVDs, obviously, they're definitely, again, well deep into their decline stage. Again, even if you could buy one, I'm not even sure. So once, these were super groundbreaking technology. I remember getting my first one in the early 80s with my family. It was super amazing, the fact that you could record TV programs. But now, VCRs are bringing virtually no sales, again, if any. Going to the other end now, think of electric cars. By now, most of the major manufacturers have at least one or two electric car models. They're obviously in the real early stages of growth. Companies like Tesla have been capitalizing on the interest in this area for a number of years. And I know there's still a major player in that market, but like I say, all the major manufacturers now are kind of getting involved in this, and electric car sales are really, really increasing at a huge rate. And I guess particularly now with things like the price of petrol and diesel being so expensive, the interest in them has become even bigger. And you also now say, I guess, on the flip side of that, is that petrol cars, there's certainly maturity, probably heading into decline, I would say. And because of legislation, diesel cars are even further into decline, particularly in some markets, I say, like in Europe. I'm not sure of the time scale, but effectively within a certain number of years, and it isn't that long, diesel cars are already going to be banned legally in certain European markets. I don't think we've got to that stage in Australia yet. But yeah, certainly in Europe, probably wouldn't be wise to buy a diesel car at this stage because, once they become obsolete, the value presumably is going to drop right down. Okay, so that is the product life cycle. Pretty straightforward, I think. There's a few examples for you. So like I say, the key to that is just being aware of where your product is, changing your marketing strategies accordingly to suit what stage you're at, and then trying to come up maybe with some extension strategies to prevent that decline at the back end. That's it, guys. I will see you in the next video for Key Knowledge 7. Cheers for now.